In order to produce accurate 1099 reports at the end of the year, you have to be tracking your 1099 expenses for your 1099 vendors throughout the entire calendar year. So what happens if you fall short somewhere? So here, for example, we're looking at John Batson, who is a general contractor and a 1099 vendor. So every single transaction over the course of the year should have been flagged as a 1099 expense. But look, I forgot to flag John as a 1099 vendor. And you know what that means? If I go to the Transactions tab and I look at any of these checks and bills that have been associated with John over the course of the year, you'll see that the 1099 checkbox has not been enabled. So right now, I wouldn't be able to produce an accurate 1099 report for this vendor. So the first thing I would want to do is, of course, come in here and correctly flag John as a 1099 vendor. But the next step is what? Go through every single check transaction over the course of the year and manually check that 1099 box? I could do that, but there is a better way. If we go to Admin and Setup, scroll down to Accounting, and then select the Vendor 1099 Adjustment tool. Assuming you have the user permission to access this feature, you'll be able to see your 1099 vendors in this grid up at the top, which you can then filter down to only examine transactions that have been associated with this vendor across the date range that you've specified. So I'm going to set this to look at the full calendar year of 2017. In terms of looking at these transactions, you can view line items where the 1099 box is checked, not checked, or both. I only want to see transactions where the 1099 box was not enabled because I know those are all mistakes. The list below is showing me a ton of transactions for John Batson. And notice if I double click on a line item, it will take me to that check where I could manually set the 1099 box. So that's a little easier than going through the bank register and trying to find all of these John Batson checks. However, with this button right here, I can pre-select the 1099 box for every expense line item on every check that I wrote to John in 2017. And now, when I save the results, every single one of those transactions has the 1099 box correctly flagged. This tool is going to save you a ton of time because you don't have to manually check these boxes anymore. The 1099 adjustment tool can do it all in one batch.